Hello, everybody, and welcome in on back to the From the 50 Midweek Review. I am your host, Zach Zook. We got Nicholas Tolle, my co-host, producer. I don't even know what to call you anymore because you're virtually a co-host, but you also produce the show. You do a lot. You're a man of many hats. And today, we got a special episode because we got the official Nicholas Tolle mock draft.
This is my first ever mock draft that I've ever done.
Yeah, so this will be fun. You can publish it online, and it'll be great. We are presented by Bookit Sports. Head on over to Bookit Sports and download the Bookit Sports app. I'm sure that do they have draft props over there, Nick? I'm not entirely sure if they do. I know that that's a popular gambling thing, but not sure if you can bet on the draft position over at Bookit. Do you know if you can?
I do not know yet.
Well, regardless, head on over to Bookit Sports. You can gamble on. We got playoff basketball, playoff hockey coming up, baseball finally getting into full swing. I feel like the hot gambling months for baseball are in this like first third of the season because everybody's so jazzed for baseball to be back and for the sport to be going on. Then about like July, it's like the true baseball guys are still around, but everybody else is like, I'm going to watch the PGA Tour or catch up on non-sports TV shows. So, but head on over to the Bookit Sports app. Those guys are doing a great job. They got a lot of really cool stuff coming. You should also follow, shameless plug for my man, Nick Yale. Follow him on like all his social channels, Twitter, Instagram. He's always posting and promoting all the different stuff that the Bookit Sports app is doing and releasing and updating. So he's a great point man to follow on social media. We are also brought to you by Aces Wild. Head on over to 208 North Main Street in Columbia, Illinois. You do have to cross the river, but I promise it's worth it. They got darts, they got TV, they got cold beer, they got good times and good vibes. So head on over to 208 North Main Street in Columbia, Illinois, and check out Aces Wild. Great weekend spot, Tolle. Great weekend spot. Also good happy hour spot. I mean, anytime really you want to blow off steam, Aces Wild is the place for you. So let's get to our first story. We got a couple. We got really one story, and then we're going to do the mock draft. So this will be a shorter episode today. But Tolle, you had seen something on the interwebs that somehow missed my my eyes here, and it has to do with my team too. So could you outline for the audience what a little birdie, a little blue birdie on your phone told you?
So there were a couple pictures posted. I assume this is from somebody that's kind of like a custodian. They were cleaning. Someone from the Packers front office was out of there at the time. So they started taking some pictures of some paperwork that was sitting there. And there was a sheet that made note to a possible draft night trade with the Patriots and the Packers.
All right. So all I have to say about that is loose lips sink ships. And as an organization in a community in Green Bay, I'm disappointed, first of all, okay? Just as a fan of the Packers and a fan of the community. This is a community and a fan base that shovels the snow in the stadium voluntarily. They line up with shovels at like 8 a.m. to shovel the stadium on game day.
Aren't you part owner too?
No, I'm not a part owner.
Oh,
they haven't put shares on sale since like 2007 or something like that. Like they're only put It's a very tough thing to become an owner, but I'm looking into it. That's what I'll say. I'm looking into it. My people are looking into it.
Yeah. So the possible trade would be the Patriots trading down from 15, and they would acquire Jordan Love, the 29th overall pick, and a 4th round pick, which is 142 overall.
And the Packers would get
the 15th pick.
15th overall pick. So, first of all, from the pictures I saw, it looks totally legit. Like the paper, like I don't think anybody like made that up or forged it. You know, you can barely make out the little trade value chart at the top of the page. So it looks legit to me. Now, one thing I will say about this is this tells me a couple of different things, but I'm actually, as a Packers fan, I'm not really all that worried. I mean, the odds that it happens are so slim, and things like this happen all the time. We just, in the public, are not privy to the information. I have, listened to and followed, former scouts, former GMs, former front office execs and personnel, and they all say if you could see some of the trade ideas that were proposed and discussed, it would blow your mind. And so from that point of view, it doesn't surprise me really at all, because I've had the thought in my own mind, well, yeah, okay, we got Jordan Love, so we have the future of the position secure. But wonder if Trey Lance slips. Wonder if Justin Fields somehow slips and we can upgrade. And you're closer to Rodgers being either retired or on another team. You're closer to the end of his contract. There's that whole dilemma going on right now. The Packers want Rodgers to restructure. Rodgers says, I want more years of guaranteed money if you want me to restructure. So they're doing that back and forth dance. Aaron's hosting Jeopardy, threatening to do it, full time, which I think that was an overreported story on. I would love it if he did that. And I think he could do it. I think he could do it fine. They can work around his schedule, filming it. I don't see why that's such an issue.
They film multiple weeks at a time anyway.
Exactly.
So
I have a buddy who lives in LA now. Funny enough, he's a big time sports photographer, videographer person. And he has worked for the Rams. He's worked for the Dodgers, WWE, and he is a huge Jeopardy fan. So he's attended multiple screenings, and he's kind of told me how it works. Yeah, I think each screening, they'll do a screening in the morning or the afternoon or whatever, and your ticket or whatever buys you several episodes, I think. I'm foggy on the details because I'm not a huge Jeopardy person, but he's telling me about it. And so regardless, that was quite a tangent. What I'm trying to say is it doesn't really concern me as a Packers fan, or it doesn't blow my mind or raise my eyebrows too much that this was discussed. You have to do your homework on the quarterbacks every year. I mean, and this is a great example of it. The Packers have Aaron Rodgers. Bill Belichick always was doing his homework, even with Tom Brady on the team. They, acquired Matt Castle. They drafted Jimmy Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett. You're always doing your homework, and you're always working out deals to get the terms arranged beforehand, because you get 10 minutes to draft, I believe, on night 1. It's less so on night 2 and night 3. But in the first round, you have 10 minutes. So basically what happens when you're on the clock is you're fielding calls, especially if you're drafting past the 10th pick. And you have the terms of these deals worked out well before draft night. It's then just a matter of if the team wants to move back or move forward or take the player. That's what is determined on draft night. The value of the pick and the teams that could potentially come up or slide back, you have that in your head as the GM well before the draft takes place. Because you quite simply don't have enough time to make the decision there on draft night. I mean, I know some people think it's some Santa magic that goes on. No, they figured this stuff out well ahead of time. That's why we said on this podcast that no combine in February was a big deal. These free agent deals, these player for pick deals that go on in the offseason, and draft deals get discussed at the combine. It's one of the main places that these front office executives meet. Now, they still had these meetings over Zoom, and they still have the phone calls. I mean, the phone works both ways, and the wire is good all the time, right? They can make the call, but it's not the same as when you're at the combine. So that is the one thing that we talked about as being more influential to having no combine this spring, as opposed to the players working out. And it's exactly what this sheet has essentially confirmed. And so this custodian or whatever had taken the picture of one sheet. I guarantee you there's 20 others. And there's these exist for every team, because you have to go into the draft with as much knowledge as possible. I used to have a football coach in high school. He was our defensive coordinator. He used to always break it down with a hilarious analogy. Actually, pretty inappropriate analogy now that I think about it. But he used to always say, with his scouting reports and preparation, he'd be like, this team runs it on first down 76% of the time. If it's 1st and 10, they're going to run it 76% of the time. If it's 2nd and short, they run it like 91% of the time. And he would always like bring it back. He would always like use a girl analogy. Like, if I told you that there was a 91% chance that, the girl was going to let you take her to the prom or whatever, you would feel like you had pretty good odds, right? Well, it's the same exact theory with the draft. Like, you need as much preparation and info going into that as you can. Like, you don't want to be sitting there then at 29 and, oh shit, Trey Lance is available. We love Trey Lance. Well, let's call the Patriots. Let's see what's going to happen. And let's see if we can work out a deal to get it up. Oh, well, now we're haggling over 4th round picks and pick swaps. And I don't know, maybe they want Jordan Love. Do we really want to get rid of Jordan Love? We haven't discussed it yet internally as a franchise. Blah, 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 blah. You don't have enough time to compute all that, right?
Yeah. So, I'm curious who that player is that they think might fall there that they're going to pull that trade for, because Brandon Beane, the Bills GM, was on a podcast and he was talking about when they traded up to get Josh Allen, they had a deal worked out with the Broncos, who I think were the 3 overall pick. They had a deal all worked out. They were going to do that, but the Broncos had told them there's one person we want, and if they fall to us, we're taking them. We're not trading. So then they had to call every team between there and where they ended up being able to trade up to. And that one person was Bradley Chubb, who was there. So that's why the Bills didn't get all the way up there to take Josh Allen.
And they instead had to trade with a team between the Broncos and their pick, is what you're saying?
Yeah, and I think they ended up trading for like the number 7 pick.
So again, that's like that's a great story and a perfect example of why you do this. Yep. Because you never know how the draft's going to play out, and teams feel differently about different players, and you never know who's going to be available. And the quarterback in the Packers do have a need at quarterback. Like, maybe Jordan Love fills it. I don't think that this is necessarily indicative that they're down on Love. I think all this means is that there's a quarterback in this draft that they have a higher grade on, which I should hope. So I think another interesting takeaway that we haven't touched on yet, Tolle, is the fact that the Patriots have been rumored as a team that could potentially trade up for a quarterback. Now, I don't think that this sheet of paper, whether it's legit or not, let's say pretend for our purposes that it is, I don't think this necessarily shuts the door on them going up. I think like maybe you have a grade on one quarterback, and if he gets taken, let's say the Patriots want Mac Jones. Well, Mac Jones could very well be available at 15. If the Niners don't take him, he could be gone. So just because they're thinking about moving down to 29 doesn't mean they won't move into the top 10 too. It's what makes the draft so much fun. It's why I have so much fun every year in the weeks leading up to the draft. It's why I study the players. I just have a ball with it all. So I can't wait to see what's going to happen. I hope we get some crazy shit that goes on, and it'll be really fun to watch and take in next Thursday night. So we're already getting about a week away from the draft. So in the spirit of the draft, Tolle, let's get to your mock draft, the unveiling of the Nicholas Tolle mock draft 1.0.
Yeah. You ready for the first pick?
I'm ready for the first pick. Are you going to throw it up on the screen, or are we going to go pick by pick here?
What would you like? You're the main
Let's
host.
go pick by pick, because I don't want to just be spoiled for the first 10 picks. And then for our visual audience, we can maybe go, can you control like the portion of it that we can see? Like, can you blow it up to where you can only maybe see like 5 picks at a time?
I think so. Yeah.
Solid draft. Solid show prep, as we always brag about here on the From the 50 podcast. But Tolle, let's hear your number 1 pick. The Jacksonville Jaguars have the number 1 pick. And if they aren't taking Trevor Lawrence, then I am going to leave the studio right now.
No shocks here. Trevor Lawrence is going number 1 to the Jags.
Not surprising. His name has come up a little bit in the news cycle the last week or so. I guess he's made some comments about how he doesn't watch football on Sundays, and everybody is like got their panties all in a wad over the fact that, I don't know, they're making a mountain out of a molehill. Slow news week. I don't know what it is, but Trevor Lawrence is the obvious number 1 pick, and it'll just be really interesting to see how Urban Meyer builds the draft around him, how these guys respond to life in the NFL. Because one point I've heard made throughout the last couple months is Urban is not used to losing. Neither is Trevor Lawrence. Yep. They're going to lose like 9-10 games, best case scenario next year, right? So
we'll see. They've got some young guys there that aren't bad players. That I mean,
I wouldn't
they could
totally
have a
like put
decent
the
season.
I wouldn't totally put the light out on them going worst to first in that division if it wasn't so talented. But the fact that you have the Titans in that division, I guess the Texans are now in shambles. And what's the NFC?
Yeah.
What's the AFC South team? I'm forgetting.
The Titans.
The Colts.
Titans
and the Colts are both really good. So that's why it kind of doesn't really matter how much they improve this year, because there's no shot, in my opinion, that they're beating the Colts or the Titans consistently and outlasting them for the division. But they could be well on their way. But it is one interesting thing I've heard made about the Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence situation. Like, these guys have not lost in college. Every loss they had was devastating for them. Like, you need to learn how to deal with that defeat when you come into the pros. Like, you're going to lose like 7, 10, 12 games potentially this fall. Like, how do you deal with that? It's something that they've never had to deal with throughout the course of their professional, careers. So
for sure. At number 2, I have the Jets taking Zack Wilson. Another one's not really a shock. Pretty much everyone has that one locked in as well.
Yep. Number 3, this is where most people say the draft starts. I've heard I've heard some big J's on Twitter like, I wouldn't write it in stone that the Jets are taking Zack Wilson yet. Like, yeah, buddy, I would. Like, I know, like, it's you want to be edgy and interesting, and we need some drama leading up to draft starts at 3. It just does.
Yeah. I think the Niners are going to take Mac Jones at 3. The Kyle Shanahan, the one full time that he had to pick his quarterback, he took Kirk Cousins. That was the guy that he picked, that he wanted. I think Mac Jones is very similar to Kirk Cousins. I think that's who that they want.
But they took RG3 before they took Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, but that wasn't his decision.
No, I know. And I know that like half the staff wanted Cousins and half the staff wanted RG3, but he wouldn't have drafted Cousins in the first, though.
Maybe not, but that's still that
he
was
would have taken
guy.
him in like the 3rd.
Yeah.
So
I think he would have played Kirk Cousins a lot sooner as well if he wasn't forced to play RG3.
So you buy into the fact then that the rumors, I guess, in this case, is it just the fact that Mac Jones is comparable in style to Kirk Cousins? Is that why you believe the rumors? Like, is it like what's selling you on them taking Mac Jones? Because wouldn't you agree that it would be one of the more egregious like draft value picks like in recent history, like going back to Cleveland Farrell at 4 overall by the Raiders?
There's always just so much that we don't know as these coaches and GMs talk to each other. They might know that maybe the Lions do have a super high grade on Mac Jones, and they want to, Mac Jones is the one guy that they love. They don't really care about Trey Lance and Justin Fields. And so they're going, we're going to ensure we get our guy because you can't afford to miss on it.
It's possible. I mean, I think that, we gave the Giants a lot of crap on Daniel Jones. And the Washington football team at the time got a lot of crap on Haskins. Less crap, but still crap. But the Daniel Jones one was big because a lot of people, myself included, did not have a first-round grade on him. It's like, Gettleman, what are you doing, man? Like, you probably could have had this guy in the 2nd or 3rd round, regardless of whether he's your guy and it's the quarterback position. I get it, but you didn't have to give up. It's a bad pick regardless whether or not he's good or you end up being right because of the value. But you do make a good point. Like, we're not privy to all the knowledge. We don't know because it didn't happen. Like, we don't know for a fact that Mac Jones would not have been scooped up in the 1st round. I mean, because if you do then sit and play the long game, maybe at pick 29, the Saints get him. Maybe the Pats trade up for Daniel Jones. Maybe a team that is a little bit higher on him says, we know the Giants like this guy. We know they're going to take him eventually. We're not letting them do that. We're going to scoot in front of him and grab him. Maybe the Packers would have done it. You don't know. You don't know what can happen in this draft. Anything can happen. So if you do have a high grade, take them. I just feel like, to me, it would be such an overreach because you didn't need to get up to 3. Let's say even if you wanted to get into the top 10 or you wanted to pick Mac in the 1st round, you were picking, what were they picking, 9th overall?
They were at 12.
They were at 12 initially. So let's say you want to get into the top 10. Like, why wouldn't that, again, be like a trade you work out early on in the draft? Because he's not going top 3. There's no chance that the Dolphins were going to take him or the team that was trading up was going to take him. It was going to be a trade up for Justin Fields, most likely, or potentially Trey Lance. But it sure as fuck was not going to be Mac Jones. Pardon my language. My grandpa has been watching the show the last couple of weeks, and he says I swear too much. So I'm trying to clean it up for my G-paw. But, there's no way that Mac Jones is going to be the player traded up for. So that's why, to me, it just makes no sense for the Niners to take him. I'm not saying you're wrong, and I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I just think that it's super interesting. Also, one point we should clarify. This is a mock draft based on what you think the teams are going to do, not what you would do, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Let's just get that out of the way. So 4th overall.
So this was a tough one for me. I have no idea what the Falcons are going to do. No idea. I, in my mock draft, say that they're going to take Trey Lance 4 overall. So part of my reasoning, I could see them taking Kyle Pitts. I could see them taking Penei Sewell, but they have
Justin Fields.
I think they like Trey Lance better. So, and the other part of this is you have Matt Ryan for a year. So the big thing with Trey Lance is everyone says you got to kind of give him that year to sit out. So they have no backup quarterback right now. They're going to have to cut Matt Ryan next year. They'll save $23 million against the cap if they do that. So you have that leeway to where, okay, he can learn under Matt Ryan for a year. Then we're going to cut him anyway. And then Trey Lance can play. And then when it goes to Kyle Pitts and Penei Sewell, they do have an okay left tackle, so I don't think they really need Penei Sewell as much when you're talking about that value, that positional value. And they have Hayden Hurst at tight end. So it's not like they're hurting as much in those positions as they are at quarterback.
It's interesting. I think that if the Falcons don't want a quarterback, if they don't pick a quarterback there and you have them taking Trey Lance, I think they have to trade out. I don't think you can sit at 4 and take Kyle Pitts. I don't know how you justify that, especially if Justin Fields is on the board, because the Falcons will be clamoring to take Justin Fields, who is from Atlanta, Georgia, who started his collegiate career at the University of Georgia. A lot of Falcons fans are also Bulldogs fans. This, in their eyes, is a chance to right a wrong of starting Jake Fromm over Justin Fields and letting him go to Ohio State. Like, this is a big pick for the franchise if Justin Fields is on the board. Now, if the 49ers take Justin Fields, which I think, honestly, the Falcons are hoping for that, because there's so much pressure to take Fields if the Niners don't take him. Because then what do? Do you trade out? Do you sit there and pick a quarterback, whether that be Fields or Lance? And I tell you what, if you take Lance like you have them doing, and Fields ends up being remotely good, and especially if Lance doesn't hit, oh my God, the heads are going to roll. And Arthur Smith will be a run through the mud on his way out of Atlanta, because it's just such a defining pick. And when you add the hometown element, man, I don't know how you can stick at 4. I also don't even think that, I think it's going to be really hard for them to just not pick Fields straight up if he's available at 4. Like, even if you trade out with Justin Fields there on the board, I think it's a little bit easier to accept, but
it'll depend on their return. And that's, I guess, the other caveat we can end here that we can put in here is I didn't do any trades or anything like that. Like, I just picked it as if everyone's staying the same, which we know is not going to happen.
Right. So I think mine's going to have trades as it did last year, but it's a good point. It's like, once you get to this point in the draft, one domino falls a certain way and it rearranges the entire puzzle. So
for sure.
I think what the Niners do at 3 is obviously super intriguing. It's really the first intrigue of the draft. You just got to watch the first 2 picks to make sure nothing insane happens. But what the Niners do at 3, I think it's going to be shocking no matter what they do. If they take Fields, it's going to be shocking. If they take Jones, it's going to be shocking. If they take Lance, it's going to be shocking. No matter who they take at 3, it'll be shocking.
Or they
So
really blow this whole thing up and go, we know we said we were taking a quarterback, but we're not going to. We're going to take this other guy instead.
we're taking Kyle Pitts.
Yeah. Oh, could you imagine him and George Kittle on the field at the same time?
San Francisco would
Jesus.
riot. They would
Yeah.
riot. And that would be also extremely unfair. So
Yeah.
let's move on. So we got Mac Jones at number 3, third quarterback off the board.
Yes.
Then you have Trey Lance at number 4, 4 quarterbacks in the first 4 picks. We get to number 5 with the Cincinnati Bengals, who will not be taking a quarterback this year. Tolle, this is the best case scenario for Cincinnati. They got Penei Sewell, they got Jamar Chase, and they got Kyle Pitts to choose from. Who'd you give them?
I gave them Penei Sewell. I think it is absolutely criminal if they do not get somebody to help out that offensive line in Joe Burrow. You saw what happened to him last year, him just getting killed over and over again. You have to protect that guy and get him some sort of help on that offensive line.
There's a lot of forbidden fruit tempting Cincinnati, though, Tolle. I mean, you get the chance to put Jamar Chase back with his college teammate in Joe Burrow, where he had such amazing success. Hey, you have the chance to take the best tight end prospect ever and put him on the Bengals.
They just signed Moss, his college teammate who also plays tight end. That's fine. Take the tackle and keep the guy alive.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And it felt like all offseason that was the Bengals' plan. And here we are. It's feeling like their selection is going to have a little bit more options than I think maybe they thought at the beginning of the draft process. So it'll be interesting to see what they do at 5. I don't think it's a spot where you can really mess it up. I think you can go Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts over Sewell, and nobody's going to kill you for that. But I do kind of agree. I don't think they're going to take Jamar Chase because they picked T. Higgins with an early second-round pick last year. I think they kind of view him as their young wide receiver, who they obviously think a lot of, turned it on towards the end of the season. I remember we actually read his stats on the show like a month ago, trying to figure out how successful of a rookie year he had
over 900 yards.
Almost 1,000-yard receiver rookie year. Brandon Allen was throwing to him for like the second half of the season. He's a good receiver. I think he flew under the radar. Like if you're looking for like an 8th round sleeper in your fantasy football drafts, T. Higgins, look him up.
Yeah.
Because I think especially if they do take Penei Sewell, which I'd expect them to do, don't sleep on Rashawn Slater. Also, first tackle off the board last year was Andrew Thomas out of Georgia. Not Tristan Wirfs, not Mekhi Becton, not Jedrick Wills. It was Andrew Thomas. So don't sleep on Rashawn Slater, who I know Daniel Jeremiah has ranked higher than Penei Sewell, at least last time I looked. Could have flip-flopped it by now. But so let's go to the back half of the top 10 here. Pick number 6. I believe that is the Dolphins off the top of my head. Is that correct?
It's the Dolphins. Yep. From their trade with the Eagles. I have them taking Jamar Chase.
Wow. See, so I personally believe if the board falls the way you have it, there's no shot they take Chase over Kyle Pitts.
No?
I think the way that Brian Flores and that team thinks, they'd rather have the tight end and the best player over Jamar Chase. But again, it's a pick where I don't think they can go wrong.
They have Gesicki and some guys at tight end that are already pretty good. I think they need more help outside. So I think if they get Jamar Chase to play outside, then that helps their offense more as a whole.
Kyle Pitts can play outside.
I mean, he could in college. We'll see if he can in the pros.
They do have, a couple of tight ends, and I've heard that before. But as somebody that had Mike Gesicki on his fantasy team last year, they never used him. He was a red zone guy. They hated him between the 20s. They had did they have Durham Smythe? I think that they had the old Chicago Bears tight end that they stupidly drafted in like the 3rd round several years ago. Adam Shaheen is his name. They used like 4 or 5 different guys. So like to me, that tells me that while they have several players, they don't really like any of them. And I just think in the draft, Flores would really like to have a good weapon, and I think he's probably going to go best player available. Like the Bengals, I just don't think that the Dolphins can really go wrong here. Because let's say, for example, Pitts and Chase are off the board. Take Sewell. Like you could use a tackle. You got Austin Jackson last year. Take another bookend. Keep Tua upright. Build the line. That's how you win Super Bowls anyways.
For sure. All right. So at 7, the Detroit Lions. I have them taking Justin Fields. That's where I think he comes off the board at.
It's been a popular mock spot for him to go to Detroit. And I think Detroit is jumping up and down, doing cartwheels in the war room if they're able to land one of the top QBs. If they're able to land one of Trevor Lawrence, Zack Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, I think you're absolutely doing cartwheels. If you take Mac Jones, I think, I don't know, maybe Lions fans are still excited just because depends on how you feel. He's just a very polarizing player. Like half the fan base can be like, are you kidding me? And then the other half of the fan base can be like, yes, we got Mac Jones. So, but if you get Justin Fields at 7, they're doing cartwheels and dancing and feeling like they're going to win the division for 10 years straight.
Yeah, at 8 with the Panthers, I have Rashawn Slater going. That is one of probably their absolute biggest need, bar none, is tackle. So I think whoever it is, if it's him, Sewell, whoever, they're going to take him.
Rashawn Slater. So I'm like partway through making my mock draft. It makes so much sense. Like it just makes so much sense. Like the way we know the board's going to fall, I feel like it's not so cemented the top skill guys that are going to go, but it feels like it's going to be Sewell, Chase, Pitts. That's like the top 3 non-QBs. And then you get to an area where you can maybe see a defender come off the board or something else. But at number 8, it feels like it's basically a decision for the Panthers between tackle and corner. And I think you take Rashawn Slater over Patrick Surtain 10 times out of 10. I think Slater's probably the better player as opposed to Patrick Surtain. Plus, again, he fills a bigger need. You have to, protect Sam Darnold and try to start, again, building that line. So Rashawn Slater, God, it just feels like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, and this is the hard part for me with Kyle Pitts is I think like in this range is where a lot of teams are going to be super tempted to take him, and it is going to be that we have a very glaring need. Do we get the best player at our biggest need, or do we take the best player available kind of thing?
Yeah, and I will say, I think, again, if Pitts is on the board at 7 for the Lions, I'd consider it. If I'm the Panthers, I consider it. If I'm the Dolphins, I absolutely take him. But if he starts sliding, I mean, you have to reevaluate your draft strategy at that point then and say, all right, do we want Kyle Pitts? Like this is a potential Hall of Fame talent here, and all of a sudden we're on the clock and he's on the board.
Yeah. So at 9 with the Broncos, I have them taking Micah Parsons. They desperately need linebacker help. They already have Noah Fant at tight end. So I think they resist the urge and take Micah Parsons.
Who are their linebackers? I was trying to figure that out the other day, and I guess maybe that is the biggest advocate as to why you take Micah Parsons. The only thing with the Broncos is they really do need a corner. They could use another tackle, but they really do need a corner or potentially a quarterback. They're a team that I could see trading up for a Lance or a Mac Jones. But you can't go wrong with Micah Parsons, man. This guy is absolutely insane. I've been watching him in the Big Ten for 2 or 3 years now, and I knew he was going to be a first-round pick from, I don't know, first, second game I watched him. It was just so obvious. He flies around the field. Different teams have different emphasis on the linebacker position. There are teams like the Eagles and the Packers that couldn't give a crap about the linebacker position. They don't invest in it at all. And then there's certain teams that really, think that it's a key part of the defense, and they do invest in it. Like the 49ers for years have always they haven't necessarily invested high picks in it, but they've always seemed to fall into linebackers. Like they got Fred Warner now out of BYU in the 3rd round. I think he's maybe the best linebacker in the NFL. Before that, they had Mitch Borland, the guy out of Wisconsin that retired early, Navarro Bowman, Patrick Willis. Like they always seem to fall into guys, but I think nowadays I don't buy the whole linebackers aren't important thing. I hate that the Packers philosophy seems to be disregarding that position as a whole. It costs them more yards than if they had a guy like Micah Parsons or Devin Bush or Devin White or Roquan Smith, somebody that can get sideline to sideline and be a playmaker in the middle of the defense. It is hugely important to having a solid top 10 unit in today's NFL. It's just the type of player has changed, but the position is still hugely, hugely important, in my opinion.
So the Broncos linebackers, they have Chubb and Von Miller. They're listed as linebackers.
Yeah, they're edge guys.
But really, they're edge guys, yeah. So there are 2 that are kind of in the middle are Alexander Johnson and Josie Jewell.
Josie Jewell out of the University of Iowa was picked, I think, in the third round last year or 2 years ago. I can't remember which year he
Yeah.
came out. He has impressed. Like he's done well for them, but he's not even close to Micah Parsons' level.
No.
Just the level of athlete Micah Parsons is. He's exactly what I'm talking about. He is the physical embodiment of Fred Warner, Devin Bush, Devin White, Roquan Smith, like the modern day linebacker that runs, covers, hits, blitzes. He does it all. You can't go wrong with Micah Parsons. I think it is going to be.
If you can,
it just is tough to take a linebacker over a corner. I mean, because you could have the number one corner in Patrick Surtain also, who looks to be a lockdown corner, but you can't go wrong with Micah Parsons either. I think you just.
If you add Micah Parsons, Devon Miller, and Bradley Chubb, that defense is going to be pretty good.
Pretty good front seven.
It takes a lot of pressure off your corners because those guys are going to get there quick.
Yep, absolutely does.
So at number 10 to the Cowboys is where I have Kyle Pitts going.
To the Cowboys. Oh, my gosh.
Cowboys.
So that has been a rumor of Jerry Jones's making, correct? I have seen a report that the Cowboys like Kyle Pitts.
I actually haven't seen any reports about it. I just felt like
it's a Jerry
no
pick.
way he could, it's a Jerry pick. There's no way he's going to go farther down than 10. Even if he's at 10, somebody's trading up with the Cowboys to get him at 10.
So you know what's funny? I was literally listening to a podcast a week or two ago, and they were doing a mock draft, and I think they were maybe trading picks or they were doing something. And this guy had Kyle Pitts fall into 10, which his co-host was just razzing him about, kind of like I've done to you.
Yeah.
But he finally chose him 10 to the Cowboys. He's like, that maybe makes the least sense of all. But he did acknowledge the fact that offense, you did just give Dak Prescott a huge extension. Now you need tackles, you need offensive linemen. There is a drop-off, though, between Penei Sewell, Rashawn Slater, top two tackles, and what I believe is probably like the third best tackle in Christian Darrisaw. And then you get down to like Jalen Mayfield, Tevin Jenkins, and then there's like the mid to late first round guys. But that offense is straight up unfair if you add Kyle Pitts. Like there's no reason they can't score 30 a game with Amari Cooper, Zeke Elliott, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Kyle Pitts, and the fact that you're not going to be able to re-sign some of these guys anyway. So keep bringing in the talent. Your core in like 2 to 3 years now becomes CeeDee Lamb and Kyle Pitts. Gallup is probably going to be gone. Cooper's probably going to be gone. And Zeke will probably be gone. And it'll be Tony Pollard in the backfield. So it's never a bad idea to draft good players and bring in talent. And I think that that's what free agency is for. Draft for your need in free agency. If you have Kyle Pitts as the best player, and it's you do have to take positional value into effect, but if you have Kyle Pitts as the clearly best choice, take him. Don't just take a tackle or a corner just to force it. Again, I think it would be really hard to pass up on Patrick Surtain. They just lost Chidobe Awuzie, did they not, in free agency? I think he went to the Bengals. So they do have a need at corner. They have their corners have just walked out of Dallas the last couple of years. Byron Jones and now Chidobe Awuzie. But at the same time, I could not fault them for taking Kyle Pitts. So for these next 5 picks, Tolle, let's go 11 through 15. What you got?
All right, so I'm going to share this too for those that are watching. So 11 to the Giants, I have Patrick Surtain. 12 to the Eagles, I have Devonta Smith. 13 to the Chargers, we have Trayvon Moehrig. 14 for the Vikings is an edge guy in Kwity Paye. And 15 to the Patriots is Jalen Waddle.
So off the bat here, interesting that you have the Giants going defense. Most people think the Giants are going to go offense. They think that they're going to take a playmaker, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle. That's been popular mock choice to them. But this is a team in New York that kind of hung its hat on running the football and playing defense last year. They had James Bradbury, which turned out to just be a home run free agency signing from the Carolina Panthers. I didn't think it was a good signing at the time. He absolutely played up to it. And got to give Dave Gettleman credit where credit's due. I feel like that guy is a roller coaster. He does moves that make absolutely no sense, and it turns out that way. Then he does moves that make no sense, and he looks like a freaking genius. So I don't know what to make of old Davey G. I still tend to think he's a bit of a village idiot. But Patrick Surtain to the Giants at 11, Again, not a bad pick. That's a guy I think that'll probably go before 11. And if you're the Giants, you see him there at 11. Kyle Pitts off the board, Jamar Chase off the board, top 2 tackles off the board. Yeah, let's take the top corner. I mean, you can't go wrong there. Eagles at 12 for Devonta Smith. I wonder if they'll take a wide receiver in the first round 2 years in a row. I do have my doubts about that, especially when their defense has been so bad and their offensive line has been so bad. I think that the Eagles would love to draft Patrick Surtain. I think that they would love to draft potentially J.C. Horn, depending on how they feel about the injuries. Maybe even Caleb Farley. It's a little rich for me, but if they cleared him, whatever. But Devonta Smith is a wide receiver that feels Philly to me. Like he feels like he'd fit into that offense and what they try to do there. You could do some interesting stuff with Jalen Hurts and Devonta Smith. So don't hate that at all. And again, I think like you get to this 10 range, at least in your mock. I mean, even up to 9 with the Broncos, it's like, well, I'm just taking the best guy. I'm going to take Michael Parsons. I'm going to take Kyle Pitts, Surtain, Devonta Smith. Like I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. Now, I think you have another best player available situation with the Chargers and Trevor Lawrence. This is, I think, the highest I've ever seen him mocked. But you have Derwin James, who's coming off an ACL injury. Mm-hmm. You have a quarterback that I think could use some help. I think they'd love to draft an offensive lineman. I think Christian Darrisaw would make a lot of sense to them in this spot. But I don't know what their draft grade is on him. I do know that Trevor Lawrence is clear-cut the best safety in this draft. And you can pair him up with Derwin James. You did lose Casey Hayward in free agency. So you could continue building that defense, which just has a ton of players. The Chargers have done a really good job. And this, I think, would fit their GM strategy over the last 5 years of hitting doubles. They don't try to like hit these Hall of Fame home runs like at pick 20 or pick 13, right? In this case, it's like Trevor Lawrence is a solid player. He's going to start in the league for 10 years, 8 to 10 years. Mm-hmm. If he stays healthy, his talent level is just there. He can cover. He can play down in the box. I got honestly tired or bored watching him as the robber safety just clock guys running over the middle. I mean, it literally got boring. So, Trevor Lawrence at 13 is not a bad idea. Vikings feel like it's almost a sure bet. They're going defense, either corner or edge. I think almost every mock I've seen has them taking an edge guy, which fits Zimmer and what they're trying to do. They know, too, that when their defenses were at its peak, yes, Xavier Rhodes played a huge role, and having him was huge. But it was Everson Griffin and Danielle Hunter and Linval Joseph and that pass rush that they created. Anthony Barr, too. Eric Kendricks coming on Mike Blitzes. Like, they won at the front 7 and at the point of attack. And so I think that the Vikings are absolutely going to be looking at one of these edge guys because it looks like they're going to have their pick of the litter. I really don't see – I'll be surprised if an edge guy goes before 14. I really will. I think they're going to have their choice between Jalen Phillips, Kwity Paye, Gregory Rousseau, Jason Oweh. Like I think they really are going to basically be able to, hey, whatever guy you have the highest grade on, go ahead and draft him. I think this could easily be Jalen Phillips here. Again, he's a guy that's like, they all have questions. Like Kwity Paye was misused at Michigan, therefore his production's not that great. Jason Oweh, physical freak, literally zero, like borderline zero college production. Jalen Phillips legitimately retired from football in 2019 because of concussions. You really want to draft that guy in the top 15? Gregory Rousseau did not play last year. So there's risk with all of this, but I do think that the Vikings are going to take an edge. In this situation, Tolle, I could see them taking a corner. Like J.C. Horn, I think he's going high. I was hopeful that the Packers were going to be able to take him once upon a time. No way. He's going way high. I think that Mike Zimmer, he loves drafting corners. Jeff Gladney, Mike Hughes, Trey Waynes. The list keeps going on and on. Mackenzie Alexander, first-round corners. Mackenzie wasn't a first-round corner, I don't believe. But I think he'd be hard-pressed to pass up on J.C. Horn. And then 15, the Patriots, Jalen Waddle. Ton of sense. Makes a ton of sense. You got N'Keal Harry, who I think is coming along. I think get him a quarterback that could get the ball to him. I think just basically fits right into the Julian Edelman role, and he's just such a tough guy. That's
exactly why I put him there.
Yeah, he's such a tough guy. Played through the injuries. I think that would I mean, I think that watch out, Jalen Waddle next year if he ends up in New England. So let's go 16 through 20. Sorry, did I cut you off? Were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say, I kind of feel like I'd be really surprised if the Patriots stayed here at 15. I feel like they're going up or down somewhere.
Yeah,
I don't
Bill
really think they're
normally
gonna
does
stay
move
there.
around, right? I mean, Tolle, you
Yeah.
would know better than me, but he likes to bounce around in that first round.
I think they have the most draft trades since he's become their coach than any other NFL franchise.
Especially at the top. I mean, Bill is such a value guy, and I think it
Yeah.
infuriates the fan base to a degree because he's really not that good at drafting. But he gets value. He does get value. So what was more interesting last year was that he just stayed put and picked last year. So I'm kind of with you. I feel like they're gonna move. They're gonna do something. They're either gonna slide back. They're gonna slide forward. They ain't picking at 15.
So at 16 to the Cardinals is where I have J.C. Horn going. 17 to the Raiders is Christian Darrisaw. 18 to the Dolphins, I have them taking an edge guy and Jason, however you said his last name.
It's Owe. I had to look that one up. I
Yeah.
listened to enough analysts say his name that now I know it.
At 19 to the football team, I have them taking a tackle and Tevin Jenkins. And then at 20 to the Bears, I have them taking a corner and Greg Newsome.
Hey, how about that? A little hometown love for the Chicago Bears. You get Greg Newsome the second at a Northwestern there. You just drive right up a Lakeshore Drive there, and you're at Soldier Field. So at 16, I think the Cardinals, again, are doing jumping jacks. They have a need at corner, and if J.C. Horn falls to them at 16, Steve Keim, run the card in. Run the card in, my man. Raiders at 17, Christian Darrisaw. I can't remember. Did they trade? They have Colton Miller, but did they get rid of their other tackle? Rodney Hudson was the center, but I think Kalichi Osmili, is he on the team anymore?
I don't think so. That whole offensive line is destroyed. They don't. Saw a report today. Richie Incognito said he's not retiring, but they don't know what he's doing. They're
in shambles.
An offensive lineman at this point, so
they're in shambles. They're a team too that honestly they cover up some warts and they do have some talent, but the cupboard is kind of bare. Maybe that you get a quarterback and you get some impact players and it raises the level of everybody around them. But like Henry Ruggs, I feel like you can't even put a good eval on his pro career because I don't think that it's really fair to judge him in that offense with what he was given and the way that it ran. You got Derek Carr trying to throw deep balls to one of the fastest wide receivers in the league. Just makes no sense. So I think the Raiders could really use a linebacker. Their defense is slow as molasses, and it has been for a long time. And like their last first-round pick on D, well, they took the corner out of Ohio State, right? Like last year. Yeah. I remember that was one of the worst first-round picks I thought of the draft. Cleveland Ferrell was not a top 5 pick. So like you're not getting any faster. They spend these picks, but they haven't really been the right ones. Jonathan Abram looks like he has talent. That was a shocker at the time, though, too. Mm-hmm. Guy can hit. Don't think he can really cover. If you watched Hard Knocks, guy was a little immature, kind of annoying. Yeah. Like they definitely need some help on defense, I think. But you can't go wrong drafting a tackle either. And I think that this is like the end of Christian Darrisaw's range. I think he's going in the teens, potentially early teens. He can maybe even go as high as like 9 or 10. But that's his range, like 10 to 17, 18. That's about where I see Christian Darrisaw. The Dolphins taking an edge guy in Jason Owe. I think it's a little rich for me. I think he's more of like a back end first round player or second round player. But this would be like a home run swing pick. You're betting on the physical tools. They do need a pass rush. They don't have anybody to rush the passer, so they really need some help.
They got rid of Kyle Van Noy now.
Yeah, so I mean, they really, really have a pass rushing need. So that is one thing that I think the Dolphins could potentially. This has been a slept on, I think, position for them at this spot. A lot of people have them going offense. Let's build up Tua. Let's, spend some picks to build up the line. I've seen running backs mocked here. But I don't hate Jason Owe at 18, I guess. It's just more of a positional thing, I guess, at that point. Yeah. Washington football team, don't sleep on them getting a quarterback next week. I'm just throwing it out there. I think they could trade up in this situation. I think that they could be one of those teams to keep an eye on to get into the top 10 if one of these QBs starts to slip. But Tevin Jenkins is a good pick. He's a solid tackle, one of the more popular players mocked to the Packers. I really like Tevin Jenkins. I think he is a hard-nosed football player, and I think he's going to be a good one. So a true tackle, too. Like, you don't have to worry about kicking him inside to guard. Greg Newsome would make a nice tandem with Jalen Johnson outside for Chicago. I think that I've seen safety mocked to them a couple times. Bears got a lot of work to do. So I think it's less about positional at this point. Like, just take a good player. Just take a good player, one that you're going to pick the fifth-year option up on, that you're hopefully going to extend. Just take a good player. That should be the Bears' mission this year, as is with everybody, but like, especially the teams that are farther away, that aren't competing to win a Super Bowl, just take a good player. So let's go 21 through 25.
So at 21 to the Colts, I have them taking an offensive tackle in Jalen Mayfield. 22 to the Titans, Rondale Moore at wide receiver. 23 to the Jets, linebacker Jeremiah Owusu. 24 to the Steelers, corner Caleb Farley. And 25 to the Jags, a safety in Elijah Molden.
Elijah Molden, I'm so high on him. I'm higher on him than basically everybody else. But the Colts getting a lineman, that feels pretty. Why is the GM's name there escaping me right now? But that feels pretty on brand for them.
And what's
a team
his name
that has to replace Anthony Costanzo. Yeah. Rondale Moore to the Titans is interesting. They've taken a shot on some of these gadget guys in the past, and it hasn't necessarily worked out. And Rondale Moore is not a gadget guy. He is a really good receiver. Not entirely sure what the Titan. I don't think that they go first round receiver here because they have AJ Brown and because they're a run first team anyways. Like, I think they'd rather replace the tackle that they drafted last year, that kid out of Georgia that they had to cut.
They'll have Taylor Lewan coming back to replace him this year.
Have Taylor Lewan, but they do have a hole at right tackle, I think. So I think that's a spot for them to potentially take an offensive guy. They need to start rebuilding the secondary too, because that is where they had these top 10 defenses. They had Logan Ryan. They had some really interesting pieces. Malcolm Butler got, I think, DFA'd. That's a baseball term. Released. Malcolm Butler got released. Dory Jackson, I don't think, had his option picked up. I think he's actually gone too, if I'm not mistaken. So they really need some corner help. I could see them getting a corner here, absolutely. But they could go in a number of different directions. So Rondale Moore, though, feels like a bit of a luxury pick for them. The Jets taking Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. He's by far and away, I think, the second best linebacker. I actually won't say that, because I think there's an argument to be made that Zaven Collins is better. Just kind of depends on what you like. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is comped to like Derwin James. So he's like a safety linebacker hybrid. He can really cover. He can really move. If you're the Jets, so this is like a Isaiah Simmons pick. You got to know what the F you're doing on defense if you're going to use him. Like, you cannot be totally ignorant. You can't just like line him up at Mike. I mean, it's not going to work. Then it's going to look terrible. It's what the Cardinals did with Vance Joseph. Like, they had no idea what they were doing with Isaiah Simmons. The guy is a physical freak of nature. That not many of him come around. But so the Jets just have to make sure that they have the defensive structure in place. They have to have a purpose for what he's going to look like in the defense when you draft him. Jags getting Elijah Molden. It's interesting. I wouldn't shut the door on that. Again, Jags take good players. All right, 26 through 30, Tolle.
So at 26 to the Browns, we have Gregory Rousseau. 27 to the Ravens, Azizi. 28 to the Saints, Asante Samuel Jr. 29 to the Packers, center Landon Dickerson. And 30 to the Bills is a corner that I have no idea how to pronounce his name.
Afitu Melifonwu out of Syracuse to the Bills. At 26 to the Browns, Gregory Rousseau, love it. They brought in Jadeveon Clowney too, right?
Yeah. So I did this before that signing, by the way, but I think they still could use the help.
I don't, again, like, people sometimes think, oh, well, you took him in free agency, so they're not going to take that in the draft. That's not why people do that. It's just that if I don't see an edge rusher I like, I don't have to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not forced to then pick the fourth best edge rusher on my board when my best corner is available. That's why you sign guys in free agency. Jadeveon Clowney's on a 1-year deal. It does not affect you taking an edge rusher. So I think Gregory Rosso is a big home run swing. Like it's a risk for sure, as are a lot of these edge rushers. Azeez Ojulari to the Ravens, then the pick after. He feels like a Raven. The way he plays, like I don't know if you got much of a chance to watch Georgia Tolle, but he would fit in well in Baltimore, I think. Asante Samuel Jr. going 1 pick ahead of the Packers. I hope to God if he's there, the Packers trade up in front and don't let that happen. But he's a corner that I do like him, but I've seen him get burned a couple times too. So I think there's a bit of a risk. I don't think he's in the same class as like Greg Newsome or J.C. Horn or even Caleb Farley. Landon Dickerson of the Packers coming off reconstructive ACL surgery. I wouldn't mind seeing this, to be honest. I think he's such a good guy. Like all reports that he's like an amazing teammate. You could see it when his teammates, were all on the field when he was getting carted off, and just how well he was respected at a program that churns out Pro Bowlers in Alabama. This guy was a leader. So ACL or not, like as long as the doctors say you can't take him, I have no problem taking Landon Dickerson, especially late first round. I think that the value's there. And I think that's the first interior offensive lineman coming off the board, Tolle, ahead of Elijah Vera Tucker.
That is the first one that I've coming off.
So then you got Afitu Melifonwu, who I've actually heard some rumors that the Packers are considering. His RAS score is like off the charts. He didn't have the best college tape in the world. Definitely didn't have the worst. But
he was at Syracuse. He didn't have much help.
Yeah. Well, actually, he played in a secondary with Andre Cisco, who's also in this draft. Going to be a day 2 pick. Cisco actually got more of the attention at the college program than Melifonwu did, but Melifonwu runs like 4.4. He's, I think, 6'3". He just has the physical tools and characteristics that you look for in a corner, and a flyer at 30 is more than fine for the Bills, I think, who already have a good defensive infrastructure. That makes sense for them. So let's get the final 2 picks.
Yeah, I'll just touch on the Bills a little bit more. Like they desperately kind of need that number 2 corner so that they can move Levi Wallace inside. So that would help out their defense tremendously.
Did Levi Wallace play the nickel earlier on in his career?
I believe
he had a really good nickelback. Maybe they lost him, but
yeah, they've lost some people, and then like they were having to play.
Like 2 years ago, I remember they had like this elite nickelback who I'd never heard of. He did not come from a very high stature, but he was just killing it. He was grading out at like 85 at PFF. He was doing really well.
Yeah, not sure.
I don't think it was Wallace. I think it was somebody else. But that's interesting. Yeah. So, do you think that that's their biggest team need? Probably.
Yeah, I think so. What else? I'm trying to see. Let me get over here where I had some other stuff. I mean, they could obviously use edge. That's another big need for them, but I don't know as though
you got AJ Epinesa.
That's one guy though. They need some more help there. And I mean, you can always use more wide receivers. I know there's been a lot of mock drafts having them take one of the running backs here, but I think you take the corner over a running back at this point.
Well, and they clearly are a running back by committee team. They don't want a big time running back salary on the roster. They want to split the carries between Zach Moss and Devin Singletary, and that's how they're going to do it. And in this draft or next year's draft, they're going to take another guy in the 3rd round or the 4th round or the 5th round, or they're going to have a UDFA, and that's going to be a part of the passing game. Like that's how they're going to play it. And I don't think it's a bad strategy at all.
No. So at 31 to the Chiefs, I have linebacker Zaven Collins, and at 32 to the Buccaneers, I have defensive lineman Aleem McNeil.
So the Chiefs get a linebacker. They got William Gay in the 3rd round of last year's draft, who is basically not Will. Yeah, I think it was William. Guy's last name is Gay. He came out of Mississippi State. He would have been a 1st round pick if it wasn't for off the field stuff. Shocker. Andy Reid taking a guy with off the field issues. Yeah. So if you paired Zaven Collins up with him, look out. My comp for Zaven Collins is literally, I'm not saying he's going to be this guy, but my comp for him was Brian Urlacher. You do not see linebackers that are his size that move and are as athletic and smooth as he is. He's like a big old school throwback 6'4" linebacker, but he moves, maybe not quite as good as Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, but he holds his own in coverage and he knows what he's doing. So I really love Zaven Collins. I was very tempted to put him above Owusu-Koramoah because of how much I think of him. But at the end of the day, I think Owusu-Koramoah just like he's such a chess piece and such a versatile defensive counterattack that I think he has to go over Zaven. But the Buccaneers going defensive line, continuing to bolster a pass rush that's already really good. It's a strategy we've seen the 49ers use to success. Interesting that they go McNeil over Barmore. I have it like that. I've heard some people down on Barmore. I wonder if he doesn't slip a little bit. I've seen him in some mocks. Some people are really high on him. I'm not. I'm not one of those guys. I don't think he's really going to be that big of a difference maker, especially not in the pass rush.
Yeah.
So that'll do it. What do we have? What do we have missing, Tolle? Who do we had Elijah Vera Tucker that didn't make it. We had the 5 quarterbacks go, correct? We didn't have a single running back in the first round. No. Rashad Bateman, Kadarius Toney, Elijah Moore, they all do not go. After we only had, here's another thing. I think we had, 5 tackles taken?
I believe so.
5 tackles taken? That seems about right. 1 tight end taken, 1 interior offensive lineman taken, a couple of edge guys. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that I felt like was a lock to go in the first round that you didn't put in there. Nope. Looks good to me. I think we covered it all. So that's Nick Tolle's mock draft. If you want to tell him how stupid he is, you can find him on social media and you can find you can comment down below. We'll have like a little like friendly competition, Tolle, between your mock draft and mine to see what goes, what is a little like who has like the most accuracy point, like how many picks we get right.
Yeah, print them out and just start marking off stuff.
Marking off. Check if you get it right. So give us a call at 904-990-FT50 to tell us what you think of the mock draft. If you got a comment, question, player you want us to discuss, what you want your team to do in the draft, what you think, if you want to get our opinion on what your team should do in the draft, give us a call. You can text too. It's an anonymous thing. It's totally totally chill. So go ahead and do that. 904-990-FT50. And that'll do it for our show here today, Tolle. Thank you so much for making us a part of your week, and we will see you next week. I think we're going to release the episode on draft day. We're going to release it early in the morning, so you have plenty of time to consume it the day of. We'll be covering my draft, my mock draft there on the day of the draft. And then I think we got some live stuff in the work for draft night, some streaming stuff like we did last year. So nothing official yet, but we'll announce on social media, and it'll definitely be in the pod next week. But that's kind of what we're thinking. So thank you so much for listening to us, and we'll see you next week. It's almost draft time, Tolle. We're almost there.
We're almost there.